Lucy Letby. Her best friend claims she's innocent, but evidence suggests otherwise. Welcome back, true crime fans. Today I'll be your host, Alexia Tyler, and I will be talking about the serial killer nurse. This one's definitely an interesting case. It's come all the way from the UK, so definitely a little bit farther out than we're used to, but hit that like, hit that subscribe, and of course, as always, leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the channel and any feedback. We definitely appreciate it, and every comment is read through. We really enjoy doing that. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Lucy Letby began working as a nurse at the Countess of Chester Hospital in 2012. In 2015, she was transferred to the NICU intensive care unit at the hospital. This unit had 3 to 4 deaths every year. That was what was expected. And with every death, it was expected, everything lined up, nothing ever seemed to be super fishy. And then shortly after she began working on the unit, they had 3 deaths in just 1 month, effectively doubling their death rate from the previous year. Now, to everyone around her, she seemed like a very normal 25-year-old. She had a good group of friends. Her staff really liked her. The administration had given her a staff profile, and in it they said that she quite enjoyed seeing the baby's progress, getting to know the families, getting to support the families, and that she was a very reliable nurse. But her coworkers did start to notice that after every death, in that 1 month time period, she was on shift. She was there. Whether or not she was assigned to that baby or not, she was there on shift. And people did start to become suspicious, and so they conducted an informal internal review where all 3 deaths were ruled a medication error, and nothing further ever went on that, obviously, until later. Now, there was 1 more baby that had collapsed during one of her shifts, but since the baby did not pass, they decided not to investigate this any further. It wasn't uncommon for babies to collapse on the unit. Of course, they're in intensive care. These are preemie babies. They already have pretty unstable health, but we'll come to learn that collapsing babies are quite common with Miss Lucy. So I'm going to jump a little bit ahead here, but 12 months later, after her initial transfer, she was removed from the floor and was given admin duties. She essentially was working in a non-care related role. Due to her fellow coworkers, and especially some of her doctors, raised some concerns with the board and had noticed that every death up until that point, Lucy Letby had been on the case. So they raised a formal complaint with her. They were essentially saying, like, we need to get the cops involved, this is not okay. And so she was removed from the floor. Now, during this time, there were no more suspicious deaths, and management actually required the doctors who put in the complaints to apologize for their bullying and harassment of Lucy Letby, and they were forced to write an apology as well as go to remediation, and essentially they were forced to talk to her, and they were forced to say, hey, I'm okay with you coming back to work, I'm okay with working with you, and we're gonna listen to the clip of one of those doctors.
Tell me about the night when you walked in on Lucy Letby standing over the cot of baby K.
That is a night that is etched on my memory and will be in my nightmares forever, to be honest. I was sitting at the desk just outside the room writing notes, and the nurse looking after the baby said she was popping to the delivery suite to go and talk to the parents, and she said, I've left Lucy in there babysitting. Part of me was saying, you better go in and just check everything's okay, because you know what's happened before when Lucy's been on duty. As I walked towards the incubator, I could see on the monitors that the oxygen saturations, which is basically the baby's oxygen levels, were dropping. And they dropped to a level that ordinarily, number one, the alarms would have been going off. But number two, the nurse would have called for help. And Lucy Letby was standing by the top of the incubator. She didn't have her hands in the incubator.
What was she doing then?
Well, she was just standing there. Now, tubes become dislodged, but this was a 25-week gestation baby, who wasn't kicking around, who wasn't vigorous. The only possibility was that that tube had to have been dislodged deliberately. The very first thing that Tony Chambers, the chief executive, said to us, he cogitated for a few seconds and he said, well, I can see how that might be a very convenient explanation for things. And what that says to me is that he'd already decided that wasn't going on and this was us just trying to cover up.
He was trying to blame you, in other words?
I think so. He didn't say it explicitly then. We discussed having CCTV put onto the unit. We discussed her being supervised one-to-one with somebody watching her all the time. And then we heard that Lucy Letby had been moved to the Risk and Governance Department, so she'd been taken off the unit.
Suddenly, babies stopped collapsing, and the hospital asked the Royal College of Paediatrics and Child Health to conduct a review of the deaths. In redacted paragraphs we've seen, its report concluded that Lucy Letby was an enthusiastic, capable and committed nurse, that there was nothing about her background that was suspicious, and that concerned doctors had been going with gut feeling. Those doctors were summoned to another meeting with executives who now accused them.
We bullied her. We'd behaved unprofessionally, we'd behaved in ways that were unbecoming to the profession, and then read out a letter from her, which was a very aggressive letter from her, basically saying, I'm coming back to work and you have to work with me and I'm going to prove to you that I'm a great nurse and I'm not a killer like you say. And then Tony Chambers finished off by saying, so she's coming back to work, and this is the most chilling thing. I'm drawing a line under this, you will draw a line under this, and if you cross that line, there will be consequences for you.
You were asked in court, why didn't you just phone the police if you had concerns? But here is the chief executive of the hospital, your boss, saying if you take any further action, there will be consequences for you. You have to draw a line under it. I mean, that must be an impossible position for you to be in.
It's an utterly impossible and a Kafkaesque situation to be in. As well, we were told when we initially raised concerns that if we call the police, there'll be blue and white tape everywhere, that's the end of the unit. It would be really bad for the reputation of the trust.
Clearly, the people working with her had become very suspicious of her. They didn't want to work with her anymore, and all eyes were on her at this point. But management still blamed the deaths and the increase in collapsing babies on understaffing issues. That's the official reason that the doctors were given at the time. In July of 2018, just 3 years after the initial baby's death, she was arrested in her home on 8 counts of murder and 6 counts of attempted murder. She denied any involvement in any of it. I'll put in just a little clip of that right here.
Hello, Lucy, is it? Yes. Hello, my name's Chester, please. Look, it's Steph in 2 seconds.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah. I'm going to put you in the back seat over here.
Hold on, man.
Yes.
Get this.
Okay, just take a seat in there for me, Lucy. I'll move that seat forward a bit. Shortly.
Yeah, I've just had knee surgery. So.
Oh, right, okay.
She seems really calm in this clip, not too startled. She's talking to the police officer very calmly, and now maybe this is just a UK thing, maybe things work a little bit differently over there, but I know that if I was arrested in my home, especially for something that I know I didn't do, I would be pretty freaked out. I would definitely not be so calm. Soon after her arrest, the investigation deepened, and the detectives on the case decided that they needed to look into more than 4,000 babies. More than 4,000 babies that Lucy had worked with during her time at both this hospital and the teaching hospital that she had worked at prior to working at the Countess of Chester. Letby was later charged with 7 counts of murder and 7 counts of attempted murder. She still blames every death and every collapse on understaffing issues as well as hospital skill-based issues, and denies any involvement. I just want to reiterate that she swears up and down that she was not involved in any of this. So we're going to take a look at exactly what the judge had to say to her. It's pretty intense.
Lucy Letby, over a period of almost 13 months between June 2015 and June 2016, when in your mid-20s and employed as a neonatal nurse in the Countess of Chester Hospital in Chester with specialist training in intensive care, you murdered 7 babies and attempted to murder 6 others. In the case of one of them, trying on separate occasions 2 weeks apart to murder her. You are now to be sentenced for your crimes. I order payment of the statutory surcharge in the appropriate amount. You acted in a way that was completely contrary to the normal human instincts of nurturing and caring for babies, and in gross breach of the trust that all citizens place in those who work in the medical and caring professions. The babies you harmed were born prematurely, and some were at risk of not surviving. But in each case, you deliberately harmed them, intending to kill them.
Her MO was injections of air to cause air embolisms, but she also used assault with medical instruments, insulin, as well as overfeeding to harm these babies and eventually kill some of them. The first murder that Lucy committed was a seemingly mostly healthy. Of course, these were NICU babies, so they weren't in perfect health, but as far as a NICU baby goes, this one seemed very healthy. This is baby boy A. He was a twin. In less than 90 minutes after Lucy signed in for her shift, baby boy had passed. Letby was seen over his incubator, but the nurse that was on duty with her at the time didn't think of this as, uncommon. They would check on the babies all the time. They would stand over their incubators. They would interact with the babies. Very normal. Once the nurse had realized that baby A was not responding to Lucy's care, she did take over. Now, unfortunately, this baby was not able to make it. He did not respond to any resuscitation attempts. Later, we find out that he was injected with air and it caused an air embolism. His twin sister had also been injected with air, but she managed to survive. And how we know this is that the babies had kind of a mottled skin. They were bluish, and this is conducive to an air embolism. Obviously, this is all after the fact, because at the time, everybody was confused. Nobody knew what had happened. They had never seen anything like this at the hospital before. And of course, nobody suspects foul play by one of their own nurses. I mean, I wouldn't, of course. I work with nurses on the regular, and my job is in the medical field, and I just would never imagine any one of the nurses that I work with causing harm intentionally. They love their patients. Just a few days after the twin incident, baby C had collapsed. He was another boy in seemingly good condition, and he passed suddenly. Not much more was said about this one, but yet again, Lucy was found standing over his incubator. So, just 14 days after her initial murder, baby D, another seemingly healthy baby boy, collapses and dies. Now this time, instead of another staff member noticing that she was over the incubator, the mother had noticed that she was hovering over the family hours before the baby's death, and obviously, again, you don't suspect the nurse, but she did notice that it was weird, and we'll later find out that this was Lucy scoping out the situation to see how she was going to do it. This baby also died of injection with air. Like I said previously, at this point, suspicions, had kind of raised. She was taken off the floor. No more deaths had occurred. On August 4th, baby E's mother found him bleeding and crying. She noted that Letby wasn't doing anything to help him. She was standing around. She was doing anything to make herself look busy, look like she was helping. But this mother said that she felt helpless and that she wasn't receiving any sort of care for her child. That baby did die, and again, her MO, the injection of air. Baby E was also a twin, and baby F was baby E's twin brother, and he was in the same room as another baby that was in the care of Letby. So he wasn't actually under the care of Letby at the time, but he was in the same room, and suddenly his heart rate spiked and his blood sugars dropped, and he went into critical condition after again being a seemingly healthy baby. He was able to survive. He does have severe brain damage and lives with a pretty severe disability to this day. They did find out that he was given a lethal dose of insulin. On baby G's monumental achievement of 100 days alive, which also happened to be her actual initial due date, she collapsed suddenly, and would continue to collapse in the following 3 weeks. She would survive, but she also suffered from severe disabilities as a result. 6 weeks after this incident, another baby girl would fall ill. Lucy Letby was again found standing over her incubator and would go on to actually send the family a sympathy card, and it read, "There are no words to make this better," and other things such as, "Thinking of you today and always. Sorry I cannot be there to say goodbye. Lots of love, Lucy." She sent this on the day of the baby's funeral, and once more, this child died by injection of air. My guest star over here has quite a lot to say. In April 2016, she was moved from the night shift to the day shift because that would mean that she was around a lot more people. They had other hospital staff there, such as admin, managers, those who typically only work the 9-to-5 jobs. This was because of the deaths coinciding exactly with the times of her shift. So they moved her to the day shift to try to relieve some of that suspicion from her. Just days after being moved to the day shift, baby L died of double the dose that baby F had received of insulin, this time likely to ensure that he died. This was a more than lethal dose, but obviously since baby F had survived a lethal dose of insulin, she upped the ante. She wanted to make sure that this baby died. And this baby was also a twin, so she definitely has a thing for the twins. That is a pattern that I noticed. A lot of the boys ended up being twins. Baby M, the twin, was likely injected with air, but he survived. Luckily, he does also suffer from brain damage due to this incident. The collapses and death of these twins were noted to be eerily similar and almost identical to the twins E and F. One was injected with air and one was injected with a lethal dose of insulin, and this time it had just reversed. The baby who received the insulin was the one to pass in this case. She had definitely started to up the ante here, and we'll see that with the following babies. 1 month later, baby N died of a traumatic throat injury. The father noted that while Lucy was in a separate room with him, he heard screaming and that there was a lot of blood surrounding his mouth. Again, this baby did not respond at all to any resuscitation measures. Baby O and baby P, these were 2 babies out of a set of triplets, and these were the last babies that she was able to murder before being arrested. This would happen on her very first shift after being on a vacation in Ibiza. Baby O was in perfect condition and was set to be discharged shortly thereafter, and as soon as Lucy had heard this news, baby O's condition severely changed and was soon deemed a critical case. He did die from an impact injury, and it was noted that the injury was akin to those that an adult would receive in a very severe car crash. So again, nothing that they had ever seen in the NICU before. This baby was perfectly healthy just minutes before Lucy's shift. Now, 13 minutes after this baby's death, Letby was feeding baby P, and he passed in her arms, but again, not without a fight. And it was later announced that he died from a shattered diaphragm, another thing that the NICU, this specific NICU, had never seen before, especially in this set of circumstances. Baby Q, the last of the triplets, was able to survive, but this was only because the parents begged the hospital to send the baby to another hospital because they were concerned that Letby was detrimental to their baby's health. And of course, you don't want your babies to die. You don't want your children to die. And they did everything in their power to get this baby moved, and baby Q did survive without injury because thankfully the hospital did listen to them, and the baby was moved shortly after baby P had passed. Our hearts go out to these families. Every single one of these babies had a name. Of course, they've been redacted just for the sake of privacy for both these babies and their families. This is a very, very traumatic thing to go through. You know, you expect that when you're in the hospital, your staff, you know, the nurses, the CNAs, the doctors that attend to you, the orderlies, everybody there, you expect them to have your best interest at heart. You expect them to take care of you and your baby, and, you know, to find out that the person that you trusted most with the child of your care is the one that harmed them. That's devastating. So Lucy Letby was an only child. Her parents doted on her. She was seemingly, you know, a very happy child. She had a happy childhood. Nothing of notable traumatic, you know, nothing like that had ever happened. So it definitely did come as a shock for many people. Many psychologists were saying that she doesn't fit the profile and that it just seems very odd, but they did find many, like thousands of pieces of her own personal writing that alluded to her having more issues under the surface than she had ever let anybody else see. She had a lot of pieces in her journal about self-loathing and hating herself and despising herself, but not thinking that she could do anything different. Now, she never directly says that she is harming these infants, but a lot of the dates and times that she was writing add up with the dates that these babies had passed. And with every one of these babies, she had looked into the family or had sent them cards and sympathy notes, and was definitely at the forefront. She bathed some of these babies after they had died. So my question is, what do you think her motive is? What do you think caused it? I've heard quite a few theories, one being that she was obsessed with a married doctor on her unit, and that she was doing it for his attention. She wanted to be a hero. Another one I've heard is, you know, she had a God complex. She was playing God with these babies. And I've heard many more. What do you think her motive was? We've never heard a motive, because she still, again, to this day, denies any involvement with it. She still blames it on hospital and management not being sufficient enough in their work. That's all for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was a very, very interesting case. I personally feel that had management and her higher-ups, had they listened to the other doctors and had stepped in, that, you know, this could have prevented the death of many more babies. So let me know what you think in the comments about that as well. And of course, as always, give us a like, hit that subscribe, watch our channel grow with us, be a part of the community. It's a really, really positive community and a very supportive community. So we'd love to see you back on the next video. So we'll see you next time.